country is built on the bones of our ancestors. We have our culture, we have our way of life, we have our language. What we're trying to do is retain it. Retain our right as a people to be Indian.
It was truly an empowering, free time. Watching the women is amazing how they handled everything. Protecting our people and our children's future and fighting, being warriors in that way.
The press, they just automatically gravitated to the men. And who really knew what was going on and who was really running the show were the women.
We were a movement of families.
Being the daughter of Madonna, she definitely had a reputation of being strong. And when someone went to her for help, she did what she had to do to make a difference.
However, we get the job done, you know, whatever it takes.
Good evening and welcome. My name is Beth Castle, and I want to thank you for joining us this evening. What you just saw is the trailer for my film Warrior Women. I have been working on Warrior Women for the past 8 years. It's finally done. I'm very proud of it, and it's a beautiful film. It will be showing this November on PBS and somewhere locally in Mansfield, but not tonight. Dad, William Douglas Castle, I hope you are in the audience and looking at the screen right now and listening very carefully to what I have to say. We will not be watching my film tonight. Look around you. Everyone in this auditorium is here tonight because of you. This is an honoring of you to give you hope and inspiration. William Douglas Castle is your full legal name. But the folks in this room know you by so many different names. Some call you boss, some call you Mr. Castle. A lot of folks call you coach, brother, cousin, uncle. There may be a few sweeties in the room. And I know someone in here, other than my mom, has called you a stubborn son of a bitch, but probably not to your face. Only my brother, Michael, and I call you Dad. But you've been a father to so many, and that's so awesome. So Dad, and everyone, please sit back and relax while we listen to some folks who were filmed these past few weeks. Some of them are with us tonight, some couldn't be here, but everyone wants to share a story about Doug Castle.
During the summer, he would work at the Ohio Brass to earn extra money for college. And payday was Friday, so I remember a few trips going down to Kramer's Bar. I have no idea where it is. It was scary to me, I remember that. And he would place me up on a bar stool. He would have a few beers and I would have spaghetti. I would get off the bar stool and he would say, "Our secret," which I actually kept for all these years. Parents were typical working class, stay-at-home moms, 6 children, and due to an accident, my father had an early retirement, so we did have some financial struggles. Doug and our other brother, who has passed actually in 1994, were just the heroes and the leaders in our family. Dad earned the money, but our brothers were basically there. We could go to them with anything.
My father started working in the coal mines in Kentucky when he was 13. He said, "We moved here when we got a job at Mansfield Tire and Rubber. I taught my father how to sign his name so he wouldn't have to use an X on legal documents. I was ornery. I got into trouble a lot. He said, but there was a teacher, Russell Patterson, who took me under his wing. He showed me another way instead of always causing trouble. Mr. Patterson is 93 now, and I am Mark Patterson, Russell's son. And from the memories and the stories and things I've heard, Doug signed up. My dad thought to play football. My dad was a coach, and he thought Doug came in and signed up for football to be able to get a hot shower every day, more so than he got at home. My dad saw, a good kid there and basically needed some guidance, and he kind of mentored him from there. He took him under his wing, made sure he got the shower, came in early at times to let him into the building, took him home after football practice because it was a long walk home, and just kind of tried to influence him in the right directions. My dad was diagnosed with cancer later on in life, and Doug made it a point to come around a lot just to check on him and have conversations with him, and they thought a lot of each other.
I tore my knee up playing football at Simpson years ago, and I had to miss my first year of track with Doug, and he was a track genius back in the day. I mean, he went undefeated for many years coaching track, but when I got back healthy again, got back in shape, he bought me my first pair of track shoes because my parents really couldn't afford it, and he didn't want me to run in gym shoes on a Malabar's new all-weather track. So he bought me my first pair of track shoes, and I'll be forever indebted to my dear friend for doing that. Doug also took me to my first state track meet. I was 14 years old, and since then I've been going to every state track meet. I had so much fun. It was, I think it was Doug, Coach Petrella, and Al Macchioli from Simpson, and we had a great time. He was such a relationship guy, and I think that's the way I coach. I'm still coaching at 66. I can't give it up. It's in my system. He was just such a great mentor. He impacted my life like that, and I think I'm impacting young people's lives like that also. But he was always there, man. A great guy, great mentor, great friend, and great coaching compadre.
I was fortunate enough to have Mr. Castle as my middle school principal, and it started as a principal, but definitely grew into a friendship. He grew into a friend of our family for not just middle school, but well after. He was always there. He was great about helping out with things. He would take us to stuff. I remember he would take our middle school basketball team. He'd take us. We went to the Cleveland Auto Show, things like that. He was just kind of always was just great about spending time with us and interacting with us, and just always so caring about everything. And he was always checking up on me after middle school. My dad passed away when I was 20, 2 years after I graduated high school. And, he was one of the first people at the house checking on us, and always there to help. And he was just so great, and it's just always been a great person in my life, a great influence, a great role model, a great friend, really. I think it was my freshman year, and I was at that time I was considering I was going to play football, was I just going to stick with basketball, baseball, didn't know what to do. It was kind of a tough decision for me, and so I reached out to Mr. Castle, and he said, yeah, let's talk about it. So he said, meet me at Kingwood Center. So I went down to Kingwood Center. I met him there, and he said, this is the place I like to come when I'm contemplating something, when I have a tough decision to make, and it's a good place where you can kind of be at peace with yourself and kind of clear your mind of all distractions and just kind of walk around and think. And he told me how important it was to just think about everything thoroughly, weigh all the pros and cons, but ultimately just follow your heart. And I really have always, that stuck with me as one story for him that I've really always appreciated and always remembered.
Doug's been my neighbor for about 10 years, but personally, I like to think of him as like a fatherly figure. I always come over to Doug's when I'm going on walks and runs, and he always tells me about my future, college plans, and things like that. So one day he decided that I need to go further and go to Youngstown for a college visit. The whole day was kind of just like an exciting day because I was in 8th grade, so it was like a first time thing for me. And when I was up there after, he took me out to eat to this amazing Italian restaurant. And he was just talking the whole day about how amazing the bread, the lasagna, everything was there. And it was just an amazing experience with him. And I was so glad to have spent that day with him. He really tried to take that fatherly figure role in my life and he took me up to Ohio State a couple of times, took me up to some practices, got me some field passes on the field, and he just did that kind of stuff that not normal neighbors have to do. Like, he went beyond that, and he really took a part in growing my life, and I think I'm a different person today because of it. I'm just excited to have met him, excited to have spent my life with him, and I'm excited for the future with him.
My name is Bobby Yarn. I'm here for Mr. Castle. He was like a father to me. My junior high principal followed me all through school. How I got involved with him is there was a time that I was at his middle school attending, and my mother hadn't came home, and I was the oldest, well, I am the oldest of 5 kids. And so I couldn't handle it. I was like not knowing where she was at and whatnot. And I didn't dress for gym class. And they took me to the principal's office, which was Mr. Castle's office. And he asked me what was wrong, and I told him. And then he ended up finding her. I gave him some numbers, and he followed me from that day on, like all the way through high school, college. I was in college. I had an academic scholarship and a football scholarship. And I had to maintain a 3.0 to keep the academic part. And at the end of my sophomore year, I fell below a 3.0. I had a 2.97. And so I went to Mr. Castle. I was like, hey, this is the situation. I was like, I fell to a 2.97. I don't have the academic part. I'm not going to be able to go to school. I go to a small private school. It's like $12,000 a year back in '87, '88. And he's like, you're going to school. I said, I don't have the money. You know my situation. He's like, it don't matter. You're going to school. You're not coming home. He said, you end up selling drugs just like your friends. You're going to school. And I said, well, how am I going to do that? I don't have the money. And he said, if me and my wife had to take out a loan, then that's what it would be. And I said, I can't allow you to do that. I'm not your child. I would feel horrible. I'd feel awkward. And so we sat and talked on the porch, cried a little bit. And then he said, you just go back to school like you normally do. To play football, I had to be there earlier than everyone else. And he said, and let me worry about the finances. And I did. I went back. Played football, got called into the dean of students office like when school started, and they was like, do you know Mr. Castle? I was like, yeah. It was like, well, your tuition's paid, what you would owe. And so my junior year, I was on the dean's list both semesters, and I would go back and take my report card to show him that I appreciated everything he had done for me. And I remember going back to the school, and they knew me, and I would say, where is he at? It was like, he's in the cafeteria. I was like, all right. So I'd go downstairs, and he'd be in the middle of the cafeteria directing people and stuff, and he'd see me, and we'd make eye contact, and he'd wave me in. And I'd say, here, look. And he'd give me a hug and a kiss and stuff. And I mean, he made me feel like I was his child. And that's what he called me. It's like when these kids would come up, and it's like, Mr. Castle, who is this? He said, oh, it's my son from college.
I think, you know, we talk about the relays and the importance it was to me personally in getting involved at a young age, but I vividly remember the day, Doug, where I think I took that step to the next level and started partnering with you to the eventual meet director position. Personally, you know, outside my own father, you've probably been the most important male person in my life, and I'm just so grateful that you shared your passion, your conviction for the Mansfield relay. It's hard to express or convince anybody that spending 17 years, about 4 Saturdays leading up to the relays, pounding fence stakes and hanging snow fence and painting track can be a lot of fun. But it was my Christmas, and I look forward to spending that time with you. You know, you taught me a lot. It really wasn't a track meet. It was really about Harry Mihawk, and I think I never had the opportunity to meet Harry, but through you and my father, I was really able to carry that legacy, which I think has meant so much to the people of Mansfield. You've been a true mentor, a true friend, and someone I will always cherish. Thanks, Doug.
Boss, you left me at Sherman to take a position as principal at John Simpson Middle School. A year later, you called and asked me if I would come over and be your secretary. I told you no. A couple years later, you called and said that you had talked to Marcia Lucky and to be in your secretary, and if I would come to be the assistant principal secretary. I accepted. We worked together as a team, the 4 of us, you, Marcia, Mike Dick, and myself. Boss, you cared about the students and your staff. Thanks, Doug, for being a great teacher, principal, true friend to me and my family. You took over the Mansfield Mihawk relays, put the staff to work, and we enjoyed it. You cared about the students, and you never forgot where you came from. You loved your parents, Liz, Beth, Michael, and your siblings. You were very, very proud of them. So, boss, I love you and am thankful that things worked out and are working together. Congratulations.
Hello, Doug. This is your friend Bob Mansfield. Very humbled to have the opportunity today to talk about our relationship. Goes back to our days at Ohio State, and even when you came to Youngstown State, we would get together. You'd come up to our house and spend the night with me and Linda. We really had a good time together and talking about all of our accomplishments and our trials and tribulations down in Columbus. But more importantly, I just want to tell you how much I care about you and how much I love you. I can remember all the bowl trips that Coach Tressel so graciously took us on, to the Rose Bowl and to the Fiesta Bowl and to the Sugar Bowl, where me and you spent a lot of time in the hospitality lounge analyzing everybody's problems. And at the end of the day, it was just a great experience to spend that week with you at those events. We have been apart for a few years, but we kept in touch, and I think of you often. I pray for you often, and I know some of the struggles we've talked about that I've had, and you've helped me through some of my problems. One of the things that I've always respected about you is that you were a great listener. You cared for so many people. I remember how James Laurinaitis and some of those players had so much respect for you. You've taught me so many things that I've taken with me all the way through my relationships with Coach Tressel and all the way through the things that we've done together. But just want you to know that we pray for you every day. We're thinking of you. And just remember, I always love you and always will.
Hello, Doug. This is Stan Jefferson, your friendly neighbor down the street. All the things that you have done for me, from the time of help finishing my basement, when you came over and finished my basement for me, to all the things that you have done for me as an educator in the Mansfield City Schools. It's really been a blessing to know you and your family and all the great times that we had. I remember all the times we had, from the Mihawk relays to the times of you starting my track meets, to the times where we just used to sit at your home and just talk and laugh. As long as I have known you, you've been persistent in your values and persistent in everything that we have ever wanted to ever have discussed concerning education, athletics, academics. I also just want to say to you, it's really been a pleasure and getting to work with you when we was down at The Ohio State University, and all the great things that we did down there at Ohio State, all the great things that you contribute to our players. When we look in education, we always look at what can a person provide for impact in a person's lives. And you surely have done an impact not only in our neighborhood, in our city, but I know for myself the impact that you have given me. So once again, this is Stan, and just want to tell you here, love you and go Bucks.
I was a student of Doug's in the 9th grade biology class, the last one he taught there at Simpson. Doug was just always the funniest man. He made fun of everybody in a good way. He went around class and he goes, "Who doesn't have a date for the 9th grade prom?" And we all raised our hands that didn't have a date. He says, okay, so he went over to the blackboard, and there was a section that maybe 18, 20 inches wide. And he said, all right, now, anytime during the day, if you do not have a date for the prom, I want you to come in here, write your name, and write your qualifications for a date. Well, we all just kind of looked at each other, so we did. During the day, everybody went in, and so I put my name up there for a week. Every time I came back to my locker, after the end of the day, here he was leaning up against my locker like a mafia man that's trying to collect. And I looked at him, he gave me this big smile, and he's popping jelly beans because he always popped jelly beans. And he said, "You asked yet?" "No, Coach, he hasn't." Come Friday, Bob finally asked me to the prom. I mean, I was elated. And I come out of class and I come down the hall and here he is leaning up against the locker and he has a bigger grin on his face. And he goes, "Well, you asked yet?" "Yes, he did. And what did you do to me?" "I didn't do a thing. I didn't do anything." Doug was just always a very good man to all of us. He's the reason I do what I do today. I teach children theater. And he's been my mentor. He's been my father figure. He's been my friend. He is the yardstick that I gauge every good man by.
I'm Betty Preston. I've lived across the street from Doug and Liz since 1982, and it became clear to me when I first moved into this very special neighborhood, this very diverse and thriving neighborhood, that Doug was the go-to guy. He and his brother Don took care of everybody, really, whether it was the elderly Mrs. Stutz, who lived in my house preceding me, or her widowed neighbor, Mrs. Lottie, whether they needed trees trimmed or houses painted or any task. When I lived there through the years, often Doug was the first one in the morning to blow out the driveway when there was a snowstorm. And I remember one evening, late at night, as I heard the snowblower, I just stuck my hand out the door with the Heineken, and it was grabbed without missing a beat. And you know, those guys were pretty special. And when Doug lost Don, it seemed as if Doug even took on a more vigorous approach to caring for his neighbors. He made that very easy, and we all knew that everything was well in the neighborhood because of Doug Castle. Many block parties, many times sharing stories, of course following the OSU Buckeyes vicariously through Doug's eyes. Special friend, special guy, special neighbor.
Words to describe Doug? Practical. He would assess a problem, come up with the most effective advice, and you'd think, why didn't I think of that? Didn't matter who it was. Was it a student, a child, an athlete, an employee, a stranger on the street? Doug knew how to talk to them, how to be conversant. Everybody was comfortable with whatever we said. The facilitator, Doug talks your language. He's been there. He's done that. The lessons in life are marked in his heart.
I've known Doug since I was in junior high down in Simpson, and he was my 9th grade football coach. And one of the great things about Doug is that my dad died when he was young, my mom passed away, and my brother passed away, and every time Doug was always there. And he kind of filled a void for me when I was growing up. And if I got in trouble, he helped out taking care of me and everything. But we've had some great times together. One of the greatest things we've done was coach track together. But our biggest fun is probably riding our motorcycles, and we've been everywhere. And everywhere we go, the big thing is people say, Doug and I, we're the only two that ride the way we ride. And even my brother mentioned that. Him and I just went out west and we came back. He says, man, you guys must really kill it. Well, when we get on a motorcycle, we like to ride. The ride is the big thing. We have no problem going 1,000 miles a day because the motorcycle is the big thing. It's riding it, being in the air, and just going. Where you're going is not much, and where you've been doesn't mean much. It's the ride to get there. One of our biggest trips, we went to Alaska. We decided one summer, let's go to Alaska. 14 days later, and 10,000 miles, we went all the way to Fairbanks, Alaska, and we came home. And you get to know a person really well when you're on a motorcycle in Alaska. You're up in the country, you know, there's nothing there but animals and wilderness. And Doug got himself into a routine, and I kind of figured it out. Whenever we stop at a hotel, he always takes the bed next to the air conditioner, and the first thing he does is turn that air conditioner all the way up. It could be 50 degrees outside, but Doug still cranks that air conditioner all the way up. And when we come back at night, he always did three things. And one, he loves his family, and he always called Beth, he always called Michael, and he always called Liz. And you get to understand where the man comes from when you ride all day, but yet he's got that commitment to his family. One time we were 50 miles from the Arctic Circle, and Doug still had to make those phone calls, all three of those phone calls every night.
It wasn't easy being Doug Castle's daughter. I couldn't go anywhere, I couldn't do anything without you finding out. I mean, Dad, look around the room. There's cops here, I'm pretty sure there's a judge. I could not mess up or mess around as a teenager. And I remember taking the family van, an Aerostar, and I parked it very stupidly at the Jolly Pirate Donut Shop. Some of you might know what that is. It was very obvious and it was very out in the open. I crossed the street and I went into this party. And as you always said, there are crazies out there. So I always had to watch out for them and I could never go and do anything. So as I was standing in the party, I wasn't comfortable. I wasn't really having any fun. And I looked up and to this day, I can't remember if the music actually stopped, but I think in my dramatic retelling, there was like a scratch on the record player and the music stopped. And the kids in front of me just looked at me. They looked past me and they had this combination of fear and mortification on their face. And I do remember saying this, is my dad right behind me? And I didn't even have to look behind me. I just felt his hand on my shoulder and I just dropped my head and we walked out of the party. And I pretty much walked out of party life as a teenager. So when I think about anything I do in life, I always have a few seconds where I think, is this Dad approved? Because it was always about love.
Hey Doug, Jim Tressel here. So happy to be able to share with you and your many, many friends and all who love you. I remember when we had the chance to get to know one another and we had that passion to make sure our student athletes at Ohio State not only were great football players, but we wanted to bring people around them to help them grow as men and to make sure they understood the importance of academics. And there was no better one in the world that joined our football family than you, Doug. You're amazing. Those kids fell in love with you. They knew that you cared about them. They knew that you were going to be stern with them. They knew that you were going to have high expectations for them. But they always knew they could call on you. I can't imagine the number of phone calls I got that people said, hey, do you have Coach Castle's number? I need to call my guy. I need to reach out to him. Middle of the night, morning, they wanted to please you. They wanted to do what you expected them to do. And they're thinking so much about you. And then when you came to work for us at Youngstown State and said, hey, I have to recruit some of these good people from Richland County and Ashland County, and I know every guidance counselor, and I know every principal, I know every superintendent. They need to hear about the opportunities at Youngstown State. And then for you to bring some of those young people over and fight like crazy to get them scholarships and get them in the honors program and give them chances at Youngstown State. You know, you've changed so many lives. I was just with Sherrod Brown not too long ago in DC, and when I brought your name up, he lit up and he said, that's the guy in Mansfield that changed everyone's life, that made people grow up and you know, just made people become who they are today. So wanted to make this short, Doug. Wanted to let you know I love you so much. You know that we appreciate everything you've done for so many, and you know we're with you every step of the way.
I know the last several months have been very difficult. You have given so much of who you are to so many people. You don't like the recognition. You don't like anything coming back to you, but words can never explain how much you've meant to me.
Mr. Castle, you know, I just want to say thank you. You know, you've been such a great friend, a great influence, a great role model in my life, and I really am fortunate to have known you and been such a great friend, and I just really want to say thank you for everything you've done for me and for my life and for my family, and so I wish you nothing but the best, and thank you for letting me be a part of this.
As you know, I'm a big basketball player, so I'll be leaving for Florida for nationals tomorrow. I'll be gone for a week, and every day down there I'll be thinking of you and praying for you and hoping that everything goes out well.
Oh, I love you and thank you for everything you've ever done for me.
Doug, I love you. You are my boyfriend, and I can't thank you enough for what you've done for me in my life. You're the greatest, and there's nobody above you.
I just want to say, Doug, man, I love you. I always will love you. And friends for life, baby.
Thanks for all you do for us, what you're going to continue to do, and the love that we can share for you and your family is just special beyond words. Love you, buddy.
Doug, it's been a great time, and you know we got a lot more time to go. We're gonna have some good times coming up, but I'll never forget. You know, I had an accident this year or last year, and you know it put me in a bad situation. And I was down in Columbus, and I'll never forget. Doug visited me every day, and when my jaw was wired, they had a feeding tube through me, and they were pumping food in. And I told Doug one day, man, I'd do anything for a vanilla milkshake. Well, son of a gun, 2 days later, he snuck one in a thermos, and he had a straw, he stuck it through my wired jaw, and that's the type of friend he is. He'll do anything for you.